Now, actually, this next element really speaks to Kobe, really speaks to Jordan, Tim Grover. And this, element number 9, is obsession. Now, I feel like we've already been talking about this, but I wanted to give each one of these elements their own little time in the light, if you like. And so this next bit in the biography was a fascinating glimpse for me into what Kobe was like as a 10, 11, 12-year-old before he turns into a teenager. And so we're going to go back to the young friend that we heard about earlier. This was Vittori. But all of this section was talking about that players would say to Kobe that you might be good over here in Italy, but once you get back to America, you won't be so good. It's a different game over there, they would say. And so what I think is interesting, even when you've got a couple of friends, some of them might be on your side, but some of the parents or, other people in your circle, they actually don't want you to succeed because crazy in this human mind of ours, people think your success makes them look bad. And so they would rather that you failed. So let's talk about a little bit of not failure, but this learning that Kobe had to go through first of all. And I'm going to tell you, when I first read this in the biography, man, I almost didn't believe it. And so basically every summer, Kobe and his family would come back from Italy to Philadelphia and he would play in the summer leagues. And so the book talked about Kobe went an entire schedule without scoring a single basket, not one, it said. Yes, he was playing up against older kids, but he was crushed, it told us. And then there was this one bit, and I mean, if you're a parent, this is an unbelievable bit of parenting that his father came up and did to him. And so I'm going to share it with you because this was from the interview I mentioned earlier with Charlie Rose. And so I want to take us to Kobe's words rather than the words from the book. So Kobe said, "I'm playing in the summer league and I don't score a single point, not 1 point, not a free throw, not a layup, not a steal, nothing. And my father came up to me afterwards. He gave me a hug and said, 'Son, don't worry about it. We're going to love you if you score 0 or 50. I just remember thinking, thank you.'" I think that is a really nice moment. And, as I said, this family dynamic, it plays such a big role. And I think the thing that it made me think, if you let results dictate too much about the way you think about yourself, it can really begin to crush you. You almost have to be, of course, you have to consider what's happening out there on the court or the field or in the cage, on the course, whatever. But you need to develop this level of belief and confidence that, as Tim Grover said, that never wavers. I think it's a sneaky bit of great advice. And then the book also shares another powerful moment because during these summer leagues, the young players were asked to fill out application forms. And so the counselors would review the player applications. And they noticed for Kobe that under career plans, he had listed NBA. And so the book told us, this answer represented just the kind of unrealistic attitude the league wanted to guard against. It was the mission of the league to build the confidence in the young players while at the same time forcing them to see the light, basically to be realistic. So one of the counselors made it a point to admonish Kobe. Only 1 in a million make it to the NBA, the counselor said. So you have to plan on a future other than basketball. I'm going to be that 1 in a million, Kobe allegedly replied. After all, he explained, Magic Johnson had done it. Michael Jordan had done it. Why not him? Why not him? And then it finished. It was just the level of confidence and expectation that his father had encouraged in him. He had been raised to not see himself as an average young player. And when I made this note, it made me think of a great sports movie, Without Limits, from 1998, all about the legendary runner Steve Prefontaine. Go Pre. And so this is what it said in the movie. This is what Steve Prefontaine said. The hardest thing in the world is to believe in something. If you do, it's a miracle. was a miracle. I like little lines like this because you have to keep believing. You have to not give up on yourself. Back to the book, because I really want to keep developing this root of obsession. Because, Kobe's first obsession with basketball, but definitely his second obsession was winning. And so it told us this. He was so serious about everything that he did as far as sports was concerned, always so intense. The mentality of Kobe was concentrated to win, win, win. The rest of the kids just wanted to play, and I was like, I want to win. And then it said he realized he could take over games by himself when he was young, maybe 9 or 10 years old, playing in the little leagues. When the game was on the line and you're put in that situation, when your back's against the wall, I come out fighting. It's that fight or flight mentality, Kobe said. And I've always been a fighter. Always been a fighter. This hunger to win and not being satisfied. More than a year ago, I was watching the Arnold Schwarzenegger docuseries on Netflix, and there was a line that really hit me. Arnold said, I will always stay hungry, never satisfied with current accomplishments. Now, do I believe in that? Definitely. It's almost can you really enjoy the results and then keep pushing forwards? It's a difficult balance. It almost comes back to what we spoke about at the start of this episode, this chip on the shoulder that's always driving them forwards. And so, Kobe had this even as a 9 or 10-year-old. And so then in my notes here, to sort of build on this winning mentality, I just wanted to take us for a second to Kobe's autobiography, The Mamba Mentality. And so Pau Gasol wrote the foreword or the introduction in that book. And I just want to share some of his words because he gives us a great insight for what we're discussing right now. Gasol told us this. A lot of people have wondered how difficult it must have been to have played with Kobe. It really wasn't. All you needed to understand was where he was coming from and what he was all about and how badly he wanted to win. He would challenge players and coaches to match his intensity, his desire to bring the very best out every single day. Not just in games, this is key, not just in games, but in practices, as we spoke about earlier with this Rudy work ethic. And then this final bit, he wanted to find out what you were made of and if he could count on you to help him win. Plain and simple. What I've seen in so many champions, they are obsessed with winning, getting over the line, because ultimately that's the hardest thing. They don't want to come second. They don't want a good performance. They want to win. And it's this intensity that helps you get over the line. It's why I love learning about the killer instinct. It's why I love learning about these champions. And Kobe Bryant had it big time. And so this was an interesting paragraph because this really feeds into how all of this is built. And so this is now Kobe as a teenager, and it said, his time in a foreign land, of course Italy, had already begun to reinforce this isolationist nature that Kobe shared with his mother, spurred along by his desire to shoot alone and work on his game. It was Pam, not Joe, who finally made an effort to put up a hoop at their residence, which hastened both his singular pursuit of the game as well as his tendency to isolate himself from other children. Now, I'm sure this comes as no surprise. Kobe was like a lone wolf out in Italy. And then when he got back to the US, because he didn't really understand the culture of these American teenagers, so it was difficult for him to fit in. And then even when he joins the Lakers as a teenager, all the other guys are sort of in their early 20s. They're men, basically. So Kobe's not old enough to drink. He doesn't want to party. So again, this puts him in an environment where he's a lone wolf. And so he had to learn to embrace this aspect. But I do want to say, again, these are all just my opinions. But even if you play in a team sport, if you're going to get the best out of yourself, you have to embrace this isolationist nature, as it told us. You've got to be able to work alone when nobody's watching, Put in the reps, develop your skills, do it without encouragement. Don't rely on encouragement. And so, that might not make you the most sociable person, but at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do I want to win or do I want to be liked? And Kobe had made his decision. And that leads me, I wrote down here one of the most powerful lines in the book. It's a great line, a line that I can't get out of my mind. It said, in Kobe's world, you're either on the train or you're on the track. Basically, you're moving forwards with him or you're against him. No in between. Now, it tells a story that speaks to this obsession, this coldness that we spoke earlier about that he gets from his mother. So it was talking about a particular high school playoff defeat in 1994, and yet 5 years later, Kobe still considered this one of his most painful losses of his entire life. Even though he, dominated the game in so many respects, he scored 33 points, but he still blamed himself for that loss. And so there's an interesting couple of paragraphs in the book where it starts off. It says, Bryant said he considered that loss one of the most painful experiences of his life. And then this gives us an indication as to Kobe's attitude towards defeat. It tells us many seniors in the team were playing their last game. So this was the game from 94, was playing their last game and were about to leave high school. So the coach tells us I was waiting for Kobe, who's like the leader of the team. I was waiting for him to stand up and say something kind of poetic. But instead, Kobe stands up and says, for you guys that are leaving, thanks for everything. And then he immediately turns to the guys that were coming back the following year. Whoever's coming back, this can't happen again. You have to do everything that you need to do. This will never happen again under my watch. And the coach said there was a certain coldness to this moment. Now, I saw this coldness over and over again in the book. And so I want to jump us on the timeline. Let's jump in the time machine. We're going to head 15 years into the future because there's another incident that it spoke about in the biography that is so similar to what we just heard. And so Kobe and the Lakers had just lost the last game of the season. So they're in the locker room and the coach is going through all this stuff. Actually, let me just go to the words. It said, the coach is going through all of this usual bullshit. You guys played hard, blah, 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 trying to be positive. So then Kobe interrupts and says to the coach, I've got something to say. He stands up, points around the locker room. You mother effers don't belong on the same court as me. You're all shit, Kobe said, and then just stormed out the locker room. And then there was another line that really conveys this idea. Back to the train again. It said, if you weren't on board, he would clearly convey the idea that he wouldn't hesitate to grab you by the collar and throw you right off the train. I mean, in so many ways, I love the intensity of Kobe. I love so many aspects. But the critique at this point in his career, he hadn't yet learned to be a great teammate. He was so intense. He couldn't understand why someone else on his team wasn't giving 100%. And I actually saw an interview with him where he was talking, he was asked why he doesn't pass the ball to other players. And he said, why would I pass the ball to other players when I know they're not doing the work? It's just that simple. And so if he didn't believe that he could rely on you, he just wouldn't pass you the ball. He'd try and do it himself. And that didn't utilize the triangle offense and team basketball. That's the way that Phil Jackson, so we'll talk about all of this a bit later in other episodes, but that's the way Jackson wanted to play basketball, and Kobe would often be selfish and not play that type of basketball. And as I say, he wasn't a team player, and that would be detrimental for the first decade of his NBA career. But he would have to change this leadership element and becoming a great teammate. And I can't wait to share with you how Kobe did this because it's so valuable.